The seventh key, the key of cultivation. Use the keys every day, especially when you least feel like it. There was a student who was bothered by a spider every time he tried to quiet his mind. His master said, next time it happens, grab a brush, paint a circle on the spider's belly. The student did, and when he withdrew from his concentration, he saw a circle painted on his own stomach. Some of you have probably been following along with this book in an active fashion, incorporating the 6 keys to calm into your daily regime. Others of you have decided to plunge ahead with reading, delaying your own personal experience with the keys until you know exactly what it is you're getting into here. At this point, though, I'd like to suggest that those of you in the second group defer the reading of this final chapter until you have spent a few weeks practicing the keys 1 through 6. To recap briefly, the use of the first keys to calm take the following form. In keeping with the first key is the key of clarity, which says be aware of what anxiety is and what it is not. Some 10 minutes or so each day are dedicated to concentrating fully on a single commonplace activity. The purpose of this is to begin to tame the busy mind, so it is not so easily distracted by junk mail thoughts that falsely signal apprehensive red alerts. In keeping with the second key, the key of compassion, which says substitute compassion for control. Motivations for helping those close to us are honestly examined. Also, each day, a stranger is assisted in a small, suitable way. These actions help us put aside anxious self-preoccupation and also help give up the illusion that we can control others. In keeping with the third key, the key of crisis, which says view each crisis as a crash course in calm. Our illusion that we can control the course of all events is challenged. The strength that all of us have found in time of gravest crisis is consciously recalled, and each day a moment is taken to acknowledge a personal surrender to the flow of experience. In this way, we are able to take a break from our own exhausting defensiveness and appreciate how silly it is to imagine we can obliterate uncertainty. In keeping with the fourth key, the key of cycles, which says celebrate change because change is all there is. We see the change and life are one and the same. Habitual anxious thought patterns that attempt to defy or deny change are countered by looking for the strawberry. That is, by placing one's concentration on the most valuable element in any given situation. Now we are beginning to give up yet another anxiety-provoking illusion, the belief that we might stop time. In keeping with the fifth key is the key of cessation, which says make an ally of your mortality. No associations are made with regard to the concept of death, rather than viewing it as a foe to be vanquished, which of course it can. We view death as a counselor with worthy advice to offer. When we are anxiously torn between countless tasks and goals, we take mortality into account, asking which of these things would I most like to be remembered for. Now we can proceed with one positive aim in mind, calmly and completely. In keeping with the sixth key, the key of connectedness, which says notice that life works. We stay alert for signs that the universe is itself intelligent and compassionate. We collect evidence by noting our own synchronous experiences and by looking around the natural world. We see what looks at first like a jumbled up mess often ends up making quite literally perfect sense. By simply remaining observant, we realize that we probably have less to worry about than we imagine. The honeymoon begins and ends. Now, if you have been practicing the first 6 keys for even a few weeks, you have doubtless noticed that their cumulative effect have caused a number of things to happen. You are weaning yourself from ingrained habits. You are objectively observing your anxious impulses before acting on them. You are living more and more in the moment. You're not busy trying to fix everything all the time, and you're less obsessively attached to trivialities. A new, increasingly composed outlook is becoming more and more your norm. In itself, this is quite an achievement, and yet, as you probably have noticed, your calmness itself is engendering a number of beneficial side effects. It's likely that you've noticed you are more observant, taking in your surroundings with a new level of interest and acuity. I am always astonished how many people come into my office after embarking on the 7 Keys program and say things like, "What a lovely tree that is, a Norfolk pine, isn't it? When did you get it?" When in fact they'd passed it by for several months without a glance. Liberated from continually worrying about what has happened or what might happen, you are naturally more perceptive and receptive to what's happening right now. It's likely too that you become more creative, no longer self-restricted to treading only a familiar paths out of fear of the anticipated. You are willing to experience and enjoy the fruits of those experiments. In the bargain, you have probably noticed improved relationship with others. This is because you have become both more approachable. No one gives, quote, keep away, unquote, signals like an anxiety-ridden person, even if it's not what they consciously mean to convey. And less intimidating now that you have given up trying to impose your agenda on people. Finally, though it may seem strange, you may also experience yourself being more, quote, lucky, unquote. Not lucky in the sense that you win the lottery jackpot, but in the sense that things generally seem to be going more smoothly than in the past, and that minor impediments no longer have an impact they once did. One might argue about whether such newfound luck is because those who trust benevolent forces in the universe are more likely to benefit from them, or simply because to the calm person, what may have once seemed like a difficult circumstance now seems easily surmountable. I have come to believe it is a combination of both factors. Both, whatever the cause is, it is a phenomenon numerous practitioners of the key have reported. With so many beneficial changes in the offing, what could possibly prevent one from using the keys to calm each and every day? At first, not a thing. As a beginner, you sail along and enjoying the perspective of the calm mind, an experience and a redefinition of your very self, where you once thought of yourself as inextricably anxious. Now you see yourself as fundamentally imperturbable. You contentedly think, "Hey, I wish I'd done this sooner, and now I'll do it forever." But almost as soon as one thinks this, something else begins to take hold. The honeymoon, that sweet initial period of full bedazzlement with something fresh and positive, appears to be on the wane. perhaps a distraction over one sort or another, an important event or a problem that demands attending to looms large in your life. Suddenly, those few minutes and few actions a day you have devoted to your steady mind seem too much to spare. The keys are abandoned, and the well-meaning thought, "I'll get back to them soon," or perhaps things have simply been going so smoothly that a sense of complacency sets in. Your practice of the keys seems to have been so effective that you think, well, I guess I don't need to do these so much. Think I'll take a break. Of course, before you know it, things seem to be backslid into the ways they were before. Those old tenacious habits, so long in the making, have eagerly reaffixed themselves like barnacles to the prow of your consciousness. You think of beginning to use the keys again, but unlike the first time you undertook their practice, you find yourself generating a significant amount of inertia. The word of the self-generated psychic inertia, it is known as resistance. You may be most familiar with the term as it is used to describe, in electrical terms, the opposition of a body or its substance to the current passing through it. The current passing through it. In a way, it is used similarly here. The resistance of the busy mind to a new force attempting to pass through it is real and considerable. Psychic resistance is as natural and inevitable. It makes sense that a reactive dragging of the heels occurs on the way to personal transformation. You have conducted yourself a certain way for your entire life. To experience another way of being can be in many ways disconcerting. You may have had your complaints about your anxious habits, but after all, they were familiar. They went where you went, your faithful companion. In a sense, you miss them, like you might for an old, well-worn pair of shoes. Even if those shoes are past practical usefulness, one might be wistful for you. One may be wistful for them. Still, the point of undertaking the 7 Keys program to begin with was to tap into a deeper inner nature, a core of calm that lay dormant and undiscovered underneath familiar habits of the busy mind. Will resistance put an end to all your efforts? This is its agenda, but it need not prevail. Resistance can be resolved, and that's what the 7th key is all about. Understanding the 7th key to come. The 7th key to come says use the keys every day, especially when you least feel like it. Absolutely everyone has days when, for one reason or another, and sometimes for no particular reason they can put their finger on, they are simply not in the mood to do the things that nurture them. On such days, vitamin pills go unswallowed. Don't trust them. You don't know what's in them. My personal quote. Green vegetables go uneaten, and jogging shoes lie forlornly about, void of the feisty feet that yesterday seemed so resolute. On such days, too, it is especially difficult to summon up the wherewithal to focus selectively on one activity, or to be alert to a stranger who requires assistance. One's attention is diffused, one's motivation dulled. These are resistant days, like double coupon days at the local supermarket, or alternative side of the street parking days in the city. They are regular occurrences. We will never get rid of resistant days, but we can decide what we are going to do about them. In the past, when you committed a sinful omission, neglecting to eat your broccoli or trek over to the park for a morning run, you may have been excessively hard on yourself. You may have chastised yourself. What a miserable lout I am, and lamented that all your efforts so far were in vain. I'll never really get anywhere. Or you may have been a little too lax with yourself. You may have eagerly joined ranks with resistance, deluding yourself day after day into believing that you were only indulging in a brief hiatus from doing such beneficial things. I'll get back to it, you assure yourself, whenever. As you may have noticed, neither of these reactions to your own resistance is particularly helpful. The weight loss dieter who goes on a corn chip and nacho dip binge and mentally beats up on himself for it usually keeps eating because he thinks, what's the use? Likewise, the dieter who tells himself a few more chips and a few more and more won't really make a difference is also bound to perpetuate his own downward spiral. The final part of the 7 Keys program is to make a conscious effort to avoid either of these paths.
Doubtless you will have days when you ignore your calm mind.
Doubtless you will have days when you ignore your calm mind and forfeit being in the moment by dwelling on unsettling what-if scenarios. Doubtless you will have days when you revert to wanting to solve everything for yourself and everyone else. Having such days does not make you a bad person. On the other hand, letting one such day beget another and another is a sign that you are letting your busy mind trick you. On resistant days, you can avoid the pitfalls of self-recrimination and self-delusion. You can acknowledge that resistance is happening and you can persist in spite of it. You can do it by applying to resistance the salve of self-discipline, the key of cultivation and action. Now I can almost feel some of you cringing. Self-discipline, what a drudge. Perhaps when you think of discipline, you summon up visions of your childhood self sitting in the corner enduring an embarrassing, not to mention boring public penance. Or perhaps you conjure up an image of a completely Spartan existence, one in which you will be required to shave your head, lose your shoes, don a modest robe, and subsist on bowls of brown rice. In the context of the 7 Keys program, however, neither of these scenarios is relevant. When it comes to cultivating calm, self-discipline in anything but constraining and limited. It is in fact consonant liberation. In the 7 Keys program, self-discipline is what will allow you to resolve resistance and to build up a reservoir of calm that will sustain you during your more stressful periods. Let me explain. Everyone tends to regress under stress. When the going gets rough, it is easy to go in reverse, psychologically, undoing at least some of whatever progress one has recently made towards wearing in some new mental and emotional grooves. But the more faithful one is, to maintaining one's progress each and every day, in good times and bad times, without regard to external circumstances, the less intense that regression will be. So, for example, if one has been practicing the keys to calm only on and off, or now and then, and again, through a relatively stable time, and then runs across a major life disruption, a serious illness, for example, or relationship loss, or financial reversal, one could easily lose ground to anxiety's powerful forces. If, however, the same person had been mindfully cultivating the keys on resistant days, the scenarios would alter. He might still slip backwards a bit at first, but instead of the dynamic of being 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, it would have been like 2 steps forward, a half step back. And because that same person would be able ultimately to learn even more about the inherent calm of his inner nature from any obstacle life puts in his path, the overall picture would actually end up being 2 steps forward, a half step back, another step forward. So how exactly does one beat resistance? Well, you can't exactly beat it, and so you have to join it. In fact, the essence of self-discipline, in terms of the 7 key program, is to outsmart resistance by using what it uses. Resistance is shameless. It will appropriate just about anything in your daily life to attempt to disrupt or to divert you from the implementing of the keys to calm. It will try to convince you that the endless chores and obligation of daily life are far too pressing to allow you to divert time and energy towards your practice. How can you indulge in such extraneous undertakings? Resistance will ask. When you have memos to write, phone calls to return, meals to prepare, carpools to organize, laundry to sort, and homework to help with, you can't. Of course, if you look at the business of daily life as separate from your cultivation of calm, then you will have no choice but to give in to resistance and forego your new habits. But the secret to resolving resistance is simply to remember this: carefully attending to the business of life and cultivating are of one and the same pursuit. Washing your clothes, or assisting a child, or working on your job with focused attentiveness, with positive intent, with compassion and sincerity, removes the anxious either or factor from your thinking. Once you know this, you will never again need to worry about choosing whether to practice your keys or, say, get a casserole ready for dinner. You will no longer need to resent taking time away from this in order to do that.
You will dice your vegetables. You will boil your noodles with care and mindfulness. And at the end of it all, you will have a nice little supper and a composed perspective. And you will have knocked resistance for a loop. Why did you want to access your calm mind in the first place?
So you could rise above life, unfazed and uninvolved. Even if you could embody that attitude, you would hate it. Not to mention the fact that you would also be wildly unpopular, for you would stand apart from everyone and everything that gave existence meaning. No, the point of accessing the calm mind was and is so that you could embrace life in all its aspects, free of unwarranted fear, and diminish the distance that your nagging anxiety placed between you and your immediate. According to Zen Buddhist philosophy, even those who attain the summit of enlightenment, the state of continually accessing one's calm mind, have achieved nothing special if they stay atop the mountain they have scaled. To realize and activate enlightenment, they must descend from the rarefied air and return to the 10,000 things, that is to say, to joys and woes, to details and mundanities, the rituals and repetitions, the obstacles and challenges of downs and dirties in your face life. This is your task as well, no matter how quote high unquote or quote above it all unquote the 7 keys makes you feel from time to time. Life is sure to reactivate your emotional gravity, bringing you down to earth again, sometimes with a humbling thud. And why shouldn't it, after all? There are places to go, people to see, things to do. So go to your places, see your people, and do your things. Just take your keys with you. They are infinitely portable, and unlike other keys, once you have them, you can never really lose them. Even if you feel like you've misplaced them, you only need to look within to find them.